Good.
No, you have stuff out there in the greenery back. You got room in there for my boat?
I'm sorry. Nope, I was just getting this out of the way. It's okay. I just didn't want it to fall off.
They're donating it for you.
Well, that's good.
I have to buy that lot behind it. Romance.
Yeah, some days I think that, then I kind of like having more help me figure out how to use it. You just have to learn.
Put on the same.
I'll work on that. You can keep the buildings
Only about 40.
She needs
We'll probably
one.
have to stop here.
You need one great big stand that all your signature.
How was your been, sir?
Very good.
Is that big press get crushed?
As far as I know right now, my big shear is okay. I better organize. That's what I was thinking. I better get.
Oh, yeah, I guess. Run.
We'll put a stop for, put a hold on.
Yeah,
Actually, he can hear us all. He can hear us on the right place. Do a little test here. Tony, are you gonna watch on the streaming, or are you gonna just be online?
You know, like good.
Well, we can have people like we did for me last month. Have them step up to the podium. That way you can. Have a camera on your phone or on. You can draw your. What are you in pajamas?
Yeah, I say thank you. I didn't want to see you.
Watching football.
Oh, Monday night.
I'm normally a pretty good guy, but
Not today. Okay.
Getting all their money for their places.
You got these, right? So anything you decide. One day I was sitting there. I don't know. What club you're in? I forgot his name. Tell him, I'm like, for proceedings, this guy. How do I say, really? You know my name? It's like, I'll do this guy. I'm like, sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Do we all have those? That'd be fine. Not bad at it.
In my head.
She just like rattled off a whole bunch of names.
I too.
She gets my name pretty soon, I guess.
All right. Call the meeting to order. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
saying that since I was 6 years old.
Would you please take roll?
Councilman Madsen?
Here.
Councilman Montoya?
Here.
Councilman Brits?
Here.
Councilman Race?
Here.
Mayor Graves?
Here. You have before you an agenda. Under F, new business. Obviously change it to 5, 6, 7, 8 instead of duplicative nature there. Had a little snap with our numbering system. 7 and 8 are going to be 2 new items added. I guess I'll just start with number 7. We have a candidate for a new judge, so I will make the appointment and we'll see if we can confirm him with the council.
Municipal judge appointment?
Yes, municipal judge appointment. And then number 8 will be a planning and zoning board member appointment and see if we can get confirmation there. Which is exciting because we have movement on some slots. We have some people that have interest, so that's good.
Move to accept the agenda with amendments.
Second.
Take it.
Give it Tony, he said. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion will carry. In front of you, you have your consent agenda. For the purpose of discussion, I would entertain a motion to approve and place to record the consent agenda. So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion?
Well, I have a few thoughts. Took more time on your expenses, and Candy and I talked about them a little bit. One of them I kind of noted in the payment approval report that we're spending this month $1,300 at Baumgars versus less than $200 at Drewby. And I guess just as a general comment, Drewby's is a local owner. I'd like to see us prioritize our purchases with local ownership. Just local businesses, but local ownership. You had on your revenues, miscellaneous materials and supplies went awful high, 125,000.
And where are we at?
Revenue, detailed report, miscellaneous revenue. You said something about we collected insurance on the fire hall.
On the fire hall, yes, we had some damage to the fire hall building, so that was our insurance payment.
And that's under miscellaneous materials and supply. Is that kind of?
It's kind of our miscellaneous.
Your miscellaneous water revenue, miscellaneous sewer revenue. I mean, it's good. They're already at budgeted amounts.
And, let's see, a customer purchases a hydrant from us or something like that, different things like that, parts, pieces, it will go into there. What else all is in there?
Like whenever they go into the electric, video charges them so much.
So, it's good, it's just, you're
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
selling more
So
than
like they
you
hit a
expected.
hydrant,
Yeah.
somebody hit a hydrant and the insurance will pay for that, so they'll go back into water.
You told me on the phone that there was a error in the legal fee
Yes.
counting.
Page 1 of the expenditure sheet, it shows legal fees, year to date as $67,388.97.
Trust me that much.
But that was, there was an error there, the taxes were actually, accidentally put in there, so we'll fix that next one.
Some of your departmental operating supplies are running a little high. Motor pool salaries are high. You're 105% of budget already
Yes.
after 33% of the year.
We will need to do a budget amendment there to not budget the mechanic as a full-time employee, budgeted as a part-time.
Okay.
That was a mistake made at budget.
Is that something we do next month or when you know better or?
When that bottom line starts creeping up on
Okay.
motor pool,
Okay.
we'll do it then.
Okay, I got you. Another airport operating supplies off scale by 338%. I can go through these with you, but just a number of them I thought were kind of odd. One of them, we're still carrying in our budget the cap 51,000 for the 16th Street study. Not really, I guess, for all intents and purposes, that's going to go back into the general fund, right?
We have been taking a little bit out of there because we get bills from YDOT every once in a while.
I
So
see $23.
yep, I think we got
We
another
got
one
one
this
for
month.
2,000
Yeah.
this month.
Okay.
So we're chipping away at that.
What happens to the underrun on the pickleball court?
That,
We got 50 grand, we've only spent 40.
we'll spend the rest.
We will? Okay.
We haven't done any seal coat or markings and signage, and we'll probably even go over a little bit there.
On your admin report,
Mhm.
for the rest of the council, I talked to WCDA today about our grant, CDBG grant. They have finished all of their site visits to they have 52 grant applications this cycle. It's a lot. Which they said they were really excited to have that, but they've finished all their site visits. They're in the process of scoring all of them, and they will go to the board with their recommendation. Their board meeting is, they said they meet on Wednesdays, and it's like the 26th of January. And of course, we're welcome to go to the public meeting. But so far, they keep saying that, I said, do you need any questions answered from us? She said, no, your application was very complete. And so they're
So good. Yeah.
I think next month I'll probably make some calls to,
Board members.
I know 2 of them personally, so. I did not understand the Chief Willison's report, or one comment. He had, during the month of November, the department saw an overall increase in calls compared to the years prior, but in the data before it, you actually had 10 less.
On calls or on traffic stops or combined?
Oh.
Yeah. So I'm not talking just like every day or month, I'm talking throughout the year, we've been just seeing an increase, gradually getting up. So yeah, it's been up, down, but so far we are up in calls from
112% of last year, okay. Not necessarily last month.
It's just been just a gradual increase.
Good answer. I guess I didn't understand the ambulance stuff. So I guess maybe we need to go back to them and see, ask them for maybe a different format or something, because I
didn't break down maintenance outside.
yeah, I don't, wasn't readable, it's part of it.
You can see it.
Yeah, so maybe we just need to ask for a different format or something. But did we get answers from them on what Brandon was asking about for?
No, that's when we went to
I
break
had talked to
everything.
Roland and he had said that he had emailed me a spreadsheet with all the expenses and breakdown on the maintenance. And I couldn't find it, I didn't have it, and so I requested him to resend, and I haven't gotten it.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're saying they spent $5,000, $8,000 in maintenance on the two vehicles just last month. So,
It's the way I read it, yeah.
Which one are you looking at? I'm
this
looking at
one,
3,000.
Don?
Huh?
Yeah, this one.
Yeah, 3,000 and then the one above it, 5,097.
Okay, both units. Yep. Gotcha. See, that's far off. What else is going to come up? As you start seeing Casper and Evans and all that marijuana. It's in the rating. That's right. Yeah, I think your transfer's good.
Yeah, when you read Denver.
Yeah, that's all it is.
Manor Hospital. So we'll probably start seeing more mileage we put on too. 1,400 out of 10 miles and 800.
I apologize, Doug, I did not get a chance to look at the Wampa report.
Oh.
Was there anything interesting in there, or?
I think we're meeting with all the towns. Candy was the electrical department. We're talking about load factors and energy and how they're going to start switch billing. And so I think as they get that process, I think Rosemary then's going to meet with the council and try to explain what's happening in that regard.
Okay.
We no longer own any interest in the plants. And so, and I think they also talked about maybe providing, if the town wanted it, some services to the towns as a group, like engineering services and things like that. Maybe we can have, reduce the cost. And some small towns can't afford it.
So you sold the interest in the physical plants.
Mm-hmm.
Where did that money go?
We had to defease bonds. We had to pay off all our bonds. In fact, we had some cash. We had to chip in.
Oh.
I want to say 10 or 20 million. So. We still own our hydro rights and stuff that we have managed.
There were no expenses or anything that are gonna come back to the members.
No, we have, and we've already put that money aside, some carbon,
Oh, sequestration or
well, some kind of carbon stuff that we provided for, but no, I think we're all in good shape in that, yeah.
Is there any other comments at this time? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to petitions, memorials, proclamations, and comments. Merlin? You have anything for us?
I really don't have much this week. I'm sorry. It's been a busy week just catching up on office stuff. I haven't had any calls for data mining, so it's been quiet. I'll talk more later, though.
I'm sure you will. I think with that, we'll move on to unfinished business, item number 1.
Was that this public comment period?
Yes.
I have a comment.
Okay.
My name is Morton Dillman. I live at 1556 Pine Street. It's right along 16th Street. I'd like to know when this county raised the speed limit on 16th Street. Because right now the average speed on that street is 40 miles an hour. I live there, I know. I watch gravel trucks with belly dumps, loaded and unloaded, driving up that street at 40 miles an hour every day of the week. I'd like to know when our police force is going to start patrolling that street. You could make a living writing citations on that street. That's my comment.
All I can comment back to that is we'll do extra patrol. I know my officers are 16th Street a lot. It's a busy highway, so they're on their lots. Or I know there's a lot of citations wrote on there also. So we can do extra patrol.
I'm here to tell you, I live on that street.
I know you do.
I might see a cop on that street twice a week.
That's not true. Today, 6 times myself.
Call me a liar.
I'm not calling you a liar, sir, but I know that the officers go.
You just did. You just did call me a liar.
No, disagreeing isn't calling you a liar.
Well, thank you for
My
bringing that.
suggestion is patrol 16th Street a little more. You could pay for those cop cars, writing citations on that street. I'll guarantee it. All you have to do is patrol it.
This is the right venue. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment?
I got one.
Yes, Tony?
You know, Kenny Wilcox is retiring. That's just first I'd like to thank him for his service to the city. I wish him a happy retirement.
He's not here tonight, right?
No.
We signed a card. We did sign a card, and we're having a little gathering for him, right?
Yeah, we'll have a little retirement party at 3:30 on Friday.
3:30 this Friday here in Town Hall. And how many years does he serve?
21.
21? Long time. Thanks. Good input, Tony.
Hey,
Is there any other public comment at this time? Hearing none, we'll move on to unfinished business item number 1, which is the agreement with Fire District 1F for financing the Wheatland Volunteer Fire Department.
Mayor, I can address that a little bit. I see that members of Fire District are here. But last month I had brought the agreement to you. I thought we were ready to approve it, and we weren't. So the sections highlighted in yellow are the changes suggested by the Fire District Board. They're additional since last month, I guess is what I want to say.
So the red is what we agreed on and the yellow is additional.
Yes, the red is the changes since last year's agreement, and they are aware of those. I can actually make them a copy of it, but the yellow is additional since last month. Correct. Curtis, do you want a copy of this, or did I send
I
email
got
to you?
a copy. What we looked at when we went back and looked at this, that past agreement, since we all deal with dollars and cents, we really didn't have anything defined on some of these expenses. So that's why we wanted to address, now that we'll be paying for the mechanics labor and an assistant, what that's gonna cost us, so we have an idea, so we can budget it. And then, we're just gonna split the, item I, we're just gonna split the utility expenses 50-50. Before, we had the $5,000 offset for the insurance for the fire trucks, but we think it's just gonna make it look a lot simpler for, accounting, just to split everything across the board.
So you put in, so I'm just gonna go from the top down. You added on B, daily operational expenses. You qualified the term expenses, daily operational as opposed to what?
Expenses, it just said expenses. And daily operational really doesn't define everything. I think it gives us just an understanding of what we're looking at. But
What would you consider not to be a daily operational expense?
I would think that would be anything that, if you have to do a major repair to the building or something like that, then we would have to discuss that to know what we have for accountability on that.
Okay, so just regular, you're just kind of saying regular expenses.
Right.
Things out of the ordinary, we're gonna have a conversation about.
Yes.
You added in C, that you pay amounts with a voucher and billing from the town and approval of proper assignment. Who approves the assignment?
Tava, I think, is the one that does most of the assignments, but when we see it, sometimes we catch an error. And so we just want to have input on that.
Assignment as far as what?
Who pays the expense?
Assignment to entity? Assignment to an entity, right?
Yes.
So 1F, when you say assignment, you're talking about assignment to 1F or to the town.
Right. And it can also mean which area of the budget we're assigning it to.
That's kind of, yep. Okay. One of the things we redlined was the town and district shall meet at least quarterly as a joint planning and evaluation board. And then, so we redlined that. But then we have letter E that follows right after that's not redlined, that disputes of any assignments shall be resolved by the joint board. We don't have a joint board. Because we struck it out in E.
Probably redline that one too.
Was the issue with that the quarterly?
No, I don't think we ever met. I mean, the only time we really met was at budget time or if there was an issue, and I think that's the only thing we need to look at. I don't know that we need to do it quarterly.
So I guess, I think what we're saying there is we don't mind considering a joint board and meeting, but maybe meeting when it's necessary, not just
Not on a regular.
on a regular basis. There's nothing to cover.
Right.
But to leave that open in case there's something we need to talk about, we can sort of get together and do that.
Okay.
So I would maybe think about leaving the dispute one in there.
Yeah, oh no, I would do that. I just, for clarity, the town and the district, maybe there's something.
Maybe identify what the joint board is.
Yes, yeah.
And then as far as E, striking E, we could put, shall meet for budget items and as needed.
How would you identify the joint board, Curtis? What would you see there?
I don't know that it needs to be all three of our board members or all of the council. I think, I don't know the legal ramifications of that, as long as we can come to an agreement if we've got a dispute on something. So. I would say maybe at least two of the board members, since there's three of us, and 2 or 3 of the council members.
I think we're just disputing an assignment of expenses. It can be the town's assignee or the clerk, treasurer.
Yeah.
Need a council to do that.
Think so.
I mean, you could leave E out and just instead of referring to a joint board, shall be resolved, expenses shall be resolved by the two parties.
Yeah, that'd be.
Designees, yeah. Okay. On F, you added a quantification of labor that we would bill. You're gonna pay for the mechanics labor on your vehicles and your parts, but you wanted to quantify the mechanics labor at $32.85 and the assistant at $25. Is that what we're current?
Yeah, that just gives us an idea of what we're gonna spend. So.
You added on G, town, let's see, it says town shall pay property insurance for the fire hall. The district and the town shall split deductibles. And then this is just a note, is this just information that current deductible for wind and hail is 50,000
Yes.
and all other 1,000?
And I think the 50,000 is accumulative on all the town buildings. I don't know if it's the way Will explained it to me. And then everything else was just the $1,000.
Is it, I mean, I'm trying to read between the lines here, but maybe are you thinking that you want to be involved or have some input when the town negotiates its property insurance so that the deductible doesn't change without some input from the fire?
No, it's just that we have an idea if something occurs,
Okay,
what we can refer back to, what we would be responsible for paying.
okay.
I mean, you have the same thing when we insure the vehicles.
Right.
We keep the same insurance, so.
So currently, okay. Maybe the word current should be for FY, for this fiscal year or something like that. On H, we had this conversation and I asked you, so it says district shall pay all insurance premiums for district and town fire trucks, vehicles, and equipment. Each organization responsible for the deductibles on their vehicles and equipment. And my question to you at the time was, how does the town have input on what you're negotiating the deductibles to be?
Because it says that we have to maintain the coverage that was equivalent to what was originally purchased. So nothing has changed over the years.
Which the coverages shall be equivalent to coverage currently in. Okay. 8, I guess it's letter I now. It's all coming out, it's about the utilities. Town and district will split gas and electric utility expenses 50-50. This is for the fire hall, right?
Yes.
Just the fire hall.
Yes.
I guess like. Never really says anything there about what the building is, so if you don't mind.
And we could add that into those sections, yeah.
Councilman Brits, I think it does because it says operations of the Wheatland Fire Department, and the district building isn't part of the Wheatland Fire Department. It's a District 1 building.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't clear to me, so.
I just, it doesn't matter to me. I think that's what they were thinking.
I'm sure it was. Wanted to make sure. Okay.
So the only changes we made from what I presented was, on E, to add that the disputes of assignment of any expenses shall be resolved by the two parties
Or designees.
or designees. Okay. Was that the only change?
Really the only material change, yeah. Other stuff,
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate you going through it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Curtis.
Oh, maybe there was one change in G, the word current deductible. Let's say the deductible for the current fiscal year or something like that. Current policy year, yeah, there you go.
Don't say no one. That's all right.
Yeah, yeah. Two.
Was there a period of time when that?
Was this 1 year? We wanted to do 2 years.
Yeah, they.
I was trying to remember.
One.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so I would entertain a motion to approve the agreement with changes for the provisions of financing the Wheatland Volunteer Fire Department. And authorizing the mayor to sign said agreement.
So moved.
Cheater.
You do it with us.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Those same sign. Motion will carry. Unfinished business item number 2 is the EH&D trends. Councilman Britz, would you like to speak?
So I was able to collect a few more pieces of data that from Candy on our utility users. Over a very short period of time, there's a little bit of an increase, which is good, what we want to see. Enrollments at PCE at the school district, the data that they provide shows it kind of going down a little bit, but I think there's a lingering question in my mind about whether it covers homeschoolers or not. And I gotta follow up on that. Our building inspector was able to start, give me some data to start collecting on building permits. So it looked like we had a slug of new family dwelling permits, 9 of them, in the month of November. I didn't get any, he didn't list any commercial. He did, I mean, he didn't.
Oh,
So I don't know if we had, I don't think we had any new commercial.
his phone looked really quick on his monthly report too.
Okay. Have a gross of licensed contractors, ironically. 144. Talking to Merlin about our vacancies. We talked about at least making a note. We talked about taking Wheatland Fire Equipment building on South Street off of this list. It's temporarily occupied by the courthouse, county courthouse, until the end of next year. So it's being used, which is good. We don't know what will happen to it afterward. I renamed one here to high-tech beds. It's the previously CME facility. Merlin tells me it's equipped but not operating, right, Merlin? Yeah. Italian oil field services. Merlin reports that they're actively hiring, which, right?
That's correct.
That's good news. So maybe the facility's gonna fire back up. Is that what you're?
Well, it's all dependent upon oil drilling, and so, it comes and goes, but, the facility isn't empty. There's one on here when we get into retail
Mhm.
that I forgot to mention. Yaco's is occupied.
Oh, right. Right.
I knew there was one I forgot when I sent you that email today,
Yes.
and it wasn't until I saw it in print. I went, oh yeah, that's the one I missed.
That's great. We have a new retail entity family-owned business and.
Right, and, they moved out of the old Wheatland Development Company building and an art gallery has moved into there, so we're still occupied downtown.
Fantastic.
Correction for the record, it is not just an art gallery. The owner also intends to make it a pizzeria.
Oh,
Okay.
that's right. I read that in the paper. That's cool. So that's some neat stuff going on. We kind of changed the name of well, there's a couple of, like the Texaco on 9th and old Conoco on 9th.
Yeah, that's Manning's Conoco's, for us old timers, right, John? You remember?
I have them on my list just because they're not operating.
They're not operating, but they're
owned
not for
privately.
sale, so.
Yeah.
They're eyesore, I mean, I didn't say that. I said that, my business did.
So I made a note, they're personal storage areas, but
Yeah, they're-
not in use for commercial operations
Nope.
at the moment. So, and then,
The Via Luxite buildings,
yes,
it's not, Bob and Becky are remodeling it. They're going to use that for functions, gatherings. So I think once they get done remodeling, if you go outside, it looks amazing on the
Yeah, it's
outside.
major changes there.
Yeah, it looks really nice. So
Bob
that's
and
what they're going
Becky.
to last.
Oh, really? That's awesome. That's exciting. Okay. So we'll have another, as far as economic health and development is concerned, there's a big item on our agenda later, so.
Yep.
We'll just leave it for there.
That's it. We will move on to new business, item number 1, which is ordinance 834, amending the Wheatland Municipal Code Title 18 on first reading.
So ordinance 834, started with the 2 industrial zones. We have light and heavy currently, and we're looking at combining the 2 of those into one, because right now, if you are in heavy industrial, you need a special use permit for everything not in light industrial anyway. So it doesn't really make sense to have them separated. And then the airport needs its own zone, so it can be zoned correctly and to meet the requirements to get more whiteout points, which helps us with grants, correct? So after doing some workshops, working with the airport board and reaching out to YDOT and the FAA for reviews, this is what we settled with.
I can make a motion. I move to accept ordinance 834.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion?
Page 3, 18, 20, 10. Slight irony that you identified industrial and you're trying to get rid of that term, light industrial. I do have questions about the industrial. Let me think, what was I thinking? 1845-10. You're discussing wholesale distribution operation, research development uses with all operations contained within an enclosed building. Under that definition, certain businesses, including my own, at some certain points, including CME and others, would not fall into this category because we operate out of multiple buildings. Another example would be NutraWest, which is a nutraceutical, which is not listed later, but they operate out of multiple buildings, but they're classic light industrial entity. So I guess I question having it all in one building seems limited. I don't have a suggestion for you.
Where's it at, Councilman?
It's, page 10.
I got that.
Okay, so the very first paragraph, purpose. Industrial district is intended to provide for light manufacturing, ... with all operations contained within an enclosed building.
Depending on who you are, that'd be a big building sometimes. You could put within enclosed buildings.
That's what I'm saying, it maybe should be,
I mean, that's a suggestion.
but, I mean, we also do stuff outside. Operations are not, I mean, Eli knows, you outside building pallets or something, and it's not fully
You can't
contained
operate
within a
inside all
building.
the time.
Yeah.
That's not happening.
I mean, you could say uses are generally contained within enclosed buildings. That might make it a little more broad.
Probably are. Does that answer your question about outside work?
Generally contained, it still doesn't limit it to outside. I guess I don't know, like the lumber mill, they have stuff outside, right? Is that?
Buildings are outside.
Western outside.
Unless you put something to these districts are also designated by their legal description or designated properties.
As far as the district itself,
Yeah.
so the district itself would be either one or several legal descriptions.
That's why I was trying to figure out enclosed buildings or described property, or, if you describe the real property too, that would really help with the outdoor buses and lumber yards and
What?
like you said, pallets and everything.
Right. I mean, we load trucks outside. We load and unload, offload trucks outside, not inside a building. The sentence right after that, I'm a little confused. I think it's just language. The word "and" at the beginning of the sentence seems kind of odd to me. Does that mean, so you have this district that's sort of loosely defined, and with a special use permit, comma, maybe is where you need a comma?
Yes.
Is intended to provide for industrial development that has for all of the following. So you're saying if you have noxious inputs or heavy truck traffic, that you have to apply for a special use permit in this zone?
Right.
Well, I guess I don't know of any, I mean, Eli, we're bringing heavy trucks in all the time for steel and stuff's going out. I guess
Screams industrial to me.
Yeah.
How do you account for the impact it has on the roads currently?
What, I mean, what's your point? I guess I don't
So
understand.
because of what that type of traffic can do to our roads,
Mhm.
the special use permit allows for us to address that at that time, to where possibly we could have something to help with.
If you're zoning it industrial, you're gonna expect to have that.
You would expect to, yes,
So why would you need a special use permit to be in that zone?
for certain uses and for certain impacts.
So you're saying the zone is not designed for heavy truck traffic?
See, the problem with a special use permit is it puts you in a position as a business owner that you may be deemed industrial, but you're under a special use permit, and then you get Joe Bob next door that doesn't like what you're doing. You don't like the truck traffic. Well, then that could solely shut your operation down. And that's a big
question mark for business owners as to why would I bring my business in if you could actually just take it away from me?
Right, and we have to look at this as areas that are already established and areas that could be developed. So areas that are already established, just because they're going to be rezoned to industrial, doesn't necessarily mean that their roads were developed initially to handle that type of traffic.
Well, that's a kind of a question I had later on, was how are you gonna grandfather current zones?
So the zones that are currently either heavy industrial or light industrial will just become industrial.
Will the people or the businesses or entities that are residing located in those heavy or light industrial, will they have to come back and apply for a special use permit because now they don't comport with this?
They should already be conforming to this. Really, we took the light industrial and the heavy industrial and we combined them into just one portion of the code versus two.
But I guess what I'm saying is,
So they should be conforming already, even with the code updates.
that doesn't make sense to me.
If you're already heavy industrial, you should already have a special use permit in place per the current code.
But if I'm light industrial, I don't have a special use permit, and I am bringing in trucks with steel and supplies, so now I have to go get a special use permit.
You should have been heavy industrial, but
No,
the way, this is what they recommended. So I mean, that's why we're here to make the adjustment.
okay. Eli, was yours light industrial?
Yep.
So technically, mine is light industrial under special use permit because of where it's located. But according to, I bring in heavy truck traffic for supplies, storage, and shipping. And I have outdoor storage and operation.
Now, are you bringing in heavy truck traffic or just heavy trucks?
Well, what's your definition of traffic?
More than one a day.
Yes, more than one a day.
It would be pretty heavy traffic is how the other municipalities view it. That's how it is usually viewed. If we need to adjust the verbiage, we possibly could. But it's really the amount of traffic that's coming in and the weight of it. It's very rare that I see oversized, overweight loads actually go through town on a regular basis.
So you're talking about overweight truck traffic.
One, talking number and size.
Well, I guess I feel like we need a little clarity there. Is it something you want to get clarified tonight, or is it something that we can take under advisement? And
First reading. This is first reading
oh,
tonight.
perfect. Okay. So let me just I'll work with you on that. We'll figure something out.
Okay.
Sounds like Eli might be able to. You can bounce some stuff off Eli and Jim. Mitigation of impacts. Outdoor storage equipment and refuse areas shall be concealed from view from abutting rights of way. My business has town supplied trash containers in view of Oak Street. What am I supposed to do with those? Am I supposed to hide those? And then if I hide them, am I supposed to let the trucks am I supposed to go open a gate or something so that they can be collected on a daily basis? Because they come by every day. So I guess it's a question about, is that a workable? I guess I don't see that being workable. At least not for me. I don't know about others.
So you're basically the refuse part of it.
Yeah, that was the one mostly. And I do have equipment and storage outside, and it's in plain view, it's gated or fenced, but it's not. Am I gonna have to put up a visibility fence?
Well, if it's already existing, it would be non-conforming. Existing non-conforming, because you were in existence before this code change went into effect.
What does that mean? I'm grandfathered?
Grandfathered is not the legal term, they don't. Attorneys do not like that.
How would that affect the property that's for sale right now?
I don't understand your question.
So if it's for sale right now and somebody came in and purchased it, would they have to
Oh,
change it?
Conform to these regulations?
You have to bring it up to current code, correct?
somebody would have to pay for it, either the buyer or the seller. Yeah. Okay.
That's good to know.
Your permitted uses in the industrial district. I always wonder about lists like this. Are they supposed to be inclusive or are they just generalities?
They're supposed to be semi-vague to where you can fit into a category. There's supposed to be more categories than actual specifics.
Okay. So where would you put pharmaceutical or nutraceutical? Or should that be a separate, would you consider them industrial?
For manufacturing,
Yes.
manufacturing, which does not emit smoke, dust, or excessive noise beyond the property line.
So you would maybe classify them kind of in that general, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I guess then why have all these other ones? Why just not have manufacturing, just have that one item?
That's what the workshops wish to keep in there, and it's a combination of what is currently in light and heavy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've read those, okay. So minimum district shall be 3 acres. Again, is that for those areas that are currently in existence and non-conforming, they're allowed? Did I get that right?
That's existing.
Okay. What does public access is required mean?
You need to have access from a public right away.
Okay. What is accessory storage? Page 11, subparagraph F.
So accessory storage is going to be anything that doesn't necessarily fit into your normal storage, and that's why it lists the accessory outside storage shall not exceed the height of the fence except for the operational vehicles, trailers, and other equipment. So you just can't. It's to prevent random junk that you can see over the fence.
What about, okay. There's no restriction on the uses of connexes for storage?
No, in industrial, we currently don't have them in industrial.
Currently don't have what?
A restriction on connexes.
Okay, thank you. We do have restrictions other places for those, right?
In other districts, yes.
Okay.
How many industrial zones are there in Wheatland?
Currently, without looking at the map, 1, 2, 4, 5, I believe.
Would lock trucking be one?
Yes.
Brown Company.
Yeah, like that whole
Or is that all the same
section
zone?
of 16th Street.
Yeah, there's a whole section on 16th Street.
Yeah, right. Across from your house, right? Okay, well, I'll work with you on second reading. So. Thank you for doing this. It's a lot of work.
Thank you.
Discussion.
You handled it all.
I didn't have as much input on the airport because I don't really know that much about airports.
That's why YDOT and the FAA were consulted, so
I did read it. I learned something.
and the airport engineer provided a lot of information on that portion as well.
Well, is there any further discussion on ordinance 834, first reading? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion will carry. New business item number 2 is a request for a land use district boundary change at 1554 and 1556 Gilcrest.
So 1554 Gilcrest Street has long been utilized and zoned as residential. There was previously a single-family dwelling on the lot that had been constructed in approximately 1916. After the dwelling was demolished and the lot was cleared, it was listed for sale by the Wright Agency. I have purchased the lot in November of 2020. At the time of the purchase, the lot was vacant land and zoned residential. He placed sheds for sale on the lot in mid-May and was then informed in June by the Planning and Zoning Chairman Pyle that he needed to contact the planning office to come into compliance with the code. He met with the planning office in June and was given the recommendation to rezone to general business in conjunction with a special use permit to come into compliance. And the planner also suggested asking some of the neighbors to rezone at the same time to reduce costs and to prevent a spot zone. Planning office noted that the special use permit could not be applied for within the residential district for this use because it's not listed under the special use permit portion of the residential code. He inquired about a variance in lieu of a rezone, and the planning office noted that it was an option. The rezone with a special use permit would be a better option, and he was supplied with both the Planning and Zoning and Board of Adjustment meeting and submittal deadlines. He submitted a completed variance application on July 9th. On August 17th, the Board of Adjustments approved Mr. Amaya's request in the form of a temporary variance to operate a commercial business in a residential district until the end of May 2022, with the recommendation to rezone no later than May 2022 and abide by all setback requirements. 1556 Gilcrest has been utilized as a business on the lower floor and a residence on the upper floor. This usage started as conforming under home occupation, but has become non-conforming over the years as ownership has changed and the owner no longer lives on site. The business has grown to more than the owner plus one additional employee, if the employees can be considered employees since they're technically contractors that rent a booth. When I had talked to Attorney Weaver about this, he said, yes, this would be a spot zone, but we need to, we have to start somewhere, and eventually Gilcrest will be business down to 9th Street and along 16th Street. Electrical Superintendent Pinio had no concerns. This request for the land district boundary change at 1554 and 1556 Skillcrest is needed to bring both properties into compliance and to continue to promote business growth in Wheatland. As with many towns, Wheatland lacks housing units. Allowing mixed commercial and residential use in certain districts is one way to continue to provide housing options to residents. Both highway business and general business districts allow for this mixed use of property if the dwelling is not part of the main floor storefront. However, as the code currently reads, in highway business, a dwelling unit for occupancy by owners or managers of a business or owners of the real property on which the structure sits, and in general business, a dwelling shall be clearly incidental to the primary function of the structure. The mention of ownership in highway business may be outdated and hard to track as quickly as people switch jobs. Highway Business District zoning makes sense in this area with the location being located on the corner of 16th and Gilcrest. However, due to each portion consisting of half a lot with the two making up one lot, the planning office cannot ignore that this is indeed a spot zone, and although it is not ideal, the request does start the process of converting more of 16th Street to highway business and more of Skillcrest to general business to encourage and promote business growth in Wheatland. Another issue is the lot size. Lots in highway and general business shall not be smaller than 10 square feet, and both lots combined do not meet that requirement. The existing structure will not meet the setback requirements of either highway business or general business. Being that the structure is already existing, it would be considered allowed non-conforming. If rezoned to highway business, the vacant lot located at 1554 Gilcrest would leave little if any usable area when taking the district setbacks into account. If rezoned, the lots would be considered legal non-conforming, but the setbacks would still require a variance for all new development. With the potential for the west side of 16th Street and all of Gilcrest to eventually be home to businesses, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended to rezone to general business.
Is Jeremiah here?
Right here.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
You said planning and zoning moved to approve. What?
So, yeah, Planning and Zoning recommended approval of rezoning to general business.
That's your recommendation. Even though it's not conforming to the,
So initially, the application was for highway business, but during the meeting, they discussed with Mr. Jeremiah if he would be willing to go to general business, because it does make more sense for that area, and it would give him more lot space to work with. And in highway business, we came up with a very, very small portion of the lot that would be able to be utilized
Due to setbacks.
due to setbacks. Yes,
So is there an opinion out of your office?
it's a spot zone. It really is a spot zone because there are two, they each own half a lot. And yes, it is projected that Gilcrest is going to be business at some point, but as of right now, it really is a spot zone.
What's the zoning for the business next door to the west?
They're currently non-conforming residential. So they're both residential half lots.
The place on the corner that might be business, so they're out of whack.
They are.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
Just wake everybody up. So are they gonna be coming in too, or have they been notified?
They were a joint applicant.
Oh, they're a joint applicant.
Joint
Oh, I
applicant.
thought this was just out.
No, I applied for both of them.
Yep.
We both applied together in the same application. So I'm representing both of us.
so, well, but this application says the east half of lot 10. So we're talking about the whole lot 10?
It's all,
You're talking about all of lot
All
10,
of lot 10.
east half and west half. If you look at the ordinance,
Mhm.
the very next thing in your packet is the ordinance,
There you go.
and that's really what she requested you approve.
Oh,
I did the property history separate because they both have different property histories. So one of them is the east half, one of them is the west half.
I got the east half.
I got you.
on zoning, but it's at the beginning of a,
That's what's projected in our development plan, is that eventually Skillcrest down to 9th will be
No
business,
kidding.
And I think 16th Street is really projected.
to be highway business,
Yeah.
at least on the east, or on the west side.
do you have any input out or any comment?
My name's Alan Maya, and I'm petitioning for this. We're just selling sheds, you know, they come and go, and then we're trying to keep everything right there. We can only put so many on. We also have them online, and then on there that we sell them, because we have a whole bunch of them we can sell. Small sheds, big sheds, livestock, shelters, garages, cabins, you know. I can't put a cabin on there because it's not big enough, but, you know, we sell 8x8s. We've got one there that's 16 by 24, another one there that's 16 by 8 by 16. Excuse me. And then I can put smaller ones on. When they deliver them, I make sure I go out there and repaint a line on both, off the offset from the alley, off the offset from the fences, and from the street. And then make sure they drop them right in that area.
Amy, what's going on with the lot across the street, the Banner Capital? That's still residential, but it's
It's residential, been purchased as a rental property.
As far as I know, it's gonna be transformed back into
residential.
residential usage.
It already has been, hasn't it?
I don't
There's
know.
somebody living there.
Nice back.
So Al's lot, the age of the home that was knocked down there, is it realistic that lot you could put residential back on it?
You could put a very small house. The building inspector and I looked at that, and it is possible to put a very small house back on that property.
It's more feasible. Al's do it. Okay.
So this will bring the corner business back into conforming. Correct.
It would bring both of them into compliance. And Al's aware that even with the rezone, we probably end up needing a variance possibly here or there, depending on the sheds, even with it being a general business.
My understanding, I gotta apply for another special use permit for that.
Yes, that as well.
Well, I guess being this is, we got 3 readings.
No, the first action item, the boundary change, is that just informational? We don't need to act on it?
It should be its own item.
So number 2 is request for a land use district boundary change. Before we do anything with the ordinance.
You're doing the same thing in the ordinance, aren't you?
Yeah, aren't you doing the same thing?
Well, you're the attorney, but as far as they should be doing the item itself and then the ordinance separate. The item has to be approved before the ordinance is read, because without the approval.
And so I think you combine it into approving the ordinance. I mean, I understand what you did, but I think ultimately all you're doing is changing the zoning from residential to general business. And that's what
the action would be, you would approve the planning and zoning's recommendation to do that, but you actually do that through the rezoning ordinance.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 835 on the first reading.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Is there further discussion?
Been here for a few years, and I know the council here has been loath to use spot zones. Have sufficient rationale to ignore that, or
I think by going in conjunction with the property on the corner, that's an existing business. And with first reading, I guess I'd like to have to do some more due diligence myself too, but.
I'd like to speak to one part of it in the item number 2, the informational packet. As far as agency comments go, no, I did not submit a letter, but I was at the meetings, and my biggest frustration with it, and I think Mr. Amaya has done a nice job of mitigating it since, is there's certainly a traffic hazard on Skillcrest Street when he's loading and unloading, especially when they're doing it in low light or at dark conditions like the last couple of times they've done it.
I had a talk with that driver.
And I guess what I say, you're being very proactive, and I appreciate that.
I don't like it.
But my frustration with it from the beginning was we just marched out and did something, and then we're coming in the back door trying to get approval for something that we already just took for granted we could do. The process is here for everybody, and I think there was negligence on the property owner in just assuming they could do what they wanted to do and then have to play catch up. And
in my defense of that, I don't mean to interrupt you, when I was signing the contracts to do this, I didn't know they were breaking buildings. All of a sudden, they showed up that same day. I was informed when the rep was here, we got buildings there, and drove me over there. That's when I learned that they were being put on the property. I did not plan it out to just have them bring in and
so, no, I did not submit a letter with my concerns, but I was present at some meetings and the previous stuff going on. I know there was pretty good division in the variance board and the planning and zoning board about what to do with it. And I think that I would encourage the council to seek some information on the process of events in the next 2 readings, and seriously consider also what you had mentioned there, Bill, with the spot zone idea. I'm not saying that I don't want that next door to me. In full disclosure, I live across the alley. It's a needed service in Wheatland. Just have some concerns about the way that it all transpired. And that's nothing new to you, Mr. Amaya. I mean, you heard me say those exact same things in the meetings, and it's a frustration from my chair because we work diligently at changing, the codes and the way we try to do business, and then to have a blatant disregard of the process is a very frustrating thing.
And like I says, I didn't blatantly do it. Okay.
Is there any further comment for ordinance 835? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to new business item number 4, a request to de-annex from the town of Wheatland. Kind of in the hot seat tonight, ain't you?
It'd be a short night if it wasn't for her.
And Councilman Brett.
So on September 28th, Jeremy Harrelson for Impact Ministries submitted a petition to the town of Wheatland with a copy to the Platte County Commissioners on October 5th, requesting that Impact Ministries vacant land zone land unit development be de-annexed. Included in the meeting packet are the reports from the planning office and the county commissioners. So in interest of time, I'm not going to read the entire packet. I did highlight some areas in there that information that came up. DEQ sent over information about septic systems and town limits. An application can be made to install an SWWS within the city limits if allowed by the city, since it cannot connect to city sewer. The problem usually with these is that the lots are too small to meet setback requirements. If permitted, when the city has a sewer line to the property, the system would need to be abandoned in accordance to Chapter 25, Section 10F, abandonment of septic and holding tanks. That is in the DEQ's portion of the statutes. Town Code Section 1330, private water disposal, E, states at such time as a public sewer becomes available to a property served by a private water disposal system as provided in subsection D of this section, a direct connection shall be made to the public sewer within 60 days in compliance with this chapter, and any septic tanks, cesspools, and similar private wastewater disposal facilities shall be cleaned of sludge and filled with suitable material. In relation to wells, the University of Wyoming is the only entity allowed by state statute to drill a new water well within town limits. There were some neighbor questions that did come up. One was what activities can be conducted on county property that are illegal or controlled on property within city limits, such as hunting, discharge of firearms, raising livestock, etc. The planning office forwarded this question to Chief Wilton for a more thorough answer. And the planning office is only assigned a small portion of the town municipal code in regard to livestock. Raising of livestock is allowed within town limits if it's within a zone that it is an allowed use and the parcel size meets the minimum requirement. And Chief Wilton had also stated that the most common activity outside of town limits would be the discharge of firearms. It's allowed outside of town limits, not inside of town limits. Another question that came up is, are the building codes the same for commercial and residential buildings? Residential and commercial building codes are different, and the building usage dictates which code applies. The town of Wheatland has adopted building codes and Platte County has not. Does Impact Ministries have an approved building permit for their proposed facilities, or is one necessary? We asked this question because building has commenced on the property. Impact Ministries has not yet been assigned a building permit. I did confirm with Impact Ministries that the poles currently in the ground are to support the paintball field netting and have forwarded that information on to the building inspector. Does the public have access to view approved building plans for the Impact Ministries properties? And yes, plans can be requested via a public records request to the town clerk. And then if de-annexation request is approved, would the city consider other such requests from property owners within city limits who are connected to city utilities? Impact Ministries currently does not have access to town provided utilities. Infrastructure will need to be installed before they can connect to town utilities. Property owners that wish to deem as a town passive ordinance that does not allow utility connections outside of town limits. Chief Olson's comment, the only concern I have thought about is the property lines and law enforcement jurisdiction issues. At this moment, the Wheatland Police Department patrols the east side of Pruitt Road between South and West Walnut Street. If this passes, I would need to know where the property lines are located on the north and south ends of the property being de-annexed for jurisdiction purposes, and need to figure out who has full jurisdiction where this property connects on Pruitt Road. Town Clerk Wright, if this request is approved due to Lot B being located within the community growth area and having the potential to be annexed back into town limits, and the structures being for community use. The structures should be built to Town of Wheatland, the Town of Wheatland's adopted building code. This would not require a building permit to be issued by the town building inspector, but would require that the plans are reviewed and the structures are inspected during the construction process. Potential impacts to the county. Due to Impact Ministries being a nonprofit organization, Platte County would not gain any yearly revenue from taxes if the de-annexation was to be approved. Platte County could potentially receive a rezone application fee if granted. And if granted agricultural zoning and a building certificate fee of approximately $40,000. This is based off of the $8 million project estimate given to the Town of Wheatland building inspector. And from the approved report that came from the county commissioners, if it is approved, they would have to rezone in the county. So that would be something that the county would actually get, is the rezone application fee. Potential impacts to the town would be loss of revenue. The proposed de-annexation would not result in a tax revenue reduction to the Town of Wheatland because Impact Ministries is a nonprofit organization. The proposed de-annexation would result in a loss of revenue from utilities and other services such as water, sewer, electric, trash collection, building permit fees, grading permit fees, fence permit fees, inspection fees, and special use permit fees. Loss of potential for development to town standards should the property be de-annexed, and should it be subject to commercial development at county standards in the future. That development would very likely not be to the same subdivision and construction standards that apply within the corporate limits of the Town of Wheatland. Building standards. At the time of this writing, Platte County has not adopted building code and does not have a building inspector program or inspection program. This may result in commercial building construction on the property that is substandard or even unsafe. However, in recent years, it has been increasingly difficult to obtain financing or insurance for existing substandard buildings. In recent years, most developers and contractors within the county have self-regulated their compliance with established construction practices and certain nationwide building codes. Community buildings, regardless of location, are required to meet fire suppression standards. In town, the building inspector is involved in this process, and in the county, the state fire marshal reviews, approves, and inspects these facilities. Loss of potential water and sewer use. The development potential for these 16 acres was not calculated into the build-out estimates used to justify the town's investment in its water and sewer infrastructure. However, as noted on the final recorded plat and in the previous report, it is possible for this parcel to be connected to the Town of Wheatland infrastructure, and such infrastructure is responsibility of the landowner. Unregulated activities. It may be argued that certain activities could occur on the premises that are regulated within the town but not regulated within the county. However, upon review of the town ordinances, these do not appear to be substantial. For example, the county regulations permitting a home-based business are a little different than those in the Wheatland Municipal Code. Firearms may be discharged in the county without special permits and agreements. Precedent. This petition, if successful, could influence similar petitions for land to the east, south, and southeast. However, the town must address each petition and each property on its own merits. There is little need for precedent to justify either the approval or denial of a de-annexation request, since no two properties are exactly alike. The de-annexation process or de-annexation request by Jeremy Harrelson for Impact Ministries properties would have a negligible impact on Platte County and could potentially have a large impact on the expansion of the Town of Wheatland and potential for future revenue. Impact Ministries has been well informed of the tasks and financial burden associated with connecting to town utilities, as stated on the final plat and the rezone report. The location of the requested de-annexation and the area to the west are located within the community growth area. The approval of the de-annexation would result in a parcel surrounded by town limits on the north, east, and south. with the potential to be annexed into the town with the natural expansion of the town limits, similar to the expansion that occurred along Front and Oak Streets. There were questions about access off of Pruitt, and there were comments previously when the planning and development went in that they needed to obtain encroachment licenses from the county, and County Clerk Irvin made sure that those do not need to be applied for. He verified that with Road and Bridge, so that portion of the report you can disregard. That has been taken care of. The town engineer Wetstein did not mention infrastructure expansion or connectivity issues in his comments prior to the town's extension of water and electrical services. The parcel shall remain within the community growth area due to the parcel not having any irrigation and would be suitable for non-agricultural development. And although Impact Ministries is a nonprofit organization and does not add to the property tax income of the town or the county, Impact Ministries Community Center would be a great asset to the economic development of Platte County and the town of Wheatland. And during the Planning and Zoning meeting, Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the de-annexation. They had a lot of questions about how and where the utilities could be connected to. And as you can see from the report, they would have been connected up closer to West Walnut. Now the option to connect down closer to South Street for water and electric is there. And they, by looking into the annexation ordinance itself, when that portion of town was annexed in, the portion of the highway was not. So there is an area of the road that was not annexed into the town, and therefore the lot that the de-annexation would create the lot that the Mormon church is on to be completely surrounded by county.
Another spot zone.
No, non-contiguous town happy to share my.
So I was looking at this earlier, and at one point I read that it said there was no access to sewer, but now that's been.
So currently sewer has not been ran to that portion of Pruitt, down Pruitt, that direction. So as of right now, there is not access to sewer.
Access to sewer.
And that's why I made sure I had that comment from DEQ that they would allow them to have septic inside of town limits if needed.
Then what you just last said, though, that there is the infrastructure's there on South Street now?
For electric and water.
Okay, all right.
So, and they are across the street by the middle school, is that correct?
The electric is on the south side of South Street, and the water is on the north side of South Street. 700 feet away, right, Jeremy?
It's the water is sitting currently at around 700 and change feet away. The electrical is at just shy of 300 feet away, but it would require an under road borehole. So
that's correct.
And Jeremy Harrelson, I'll just dive in real quick. And so probably, I don't even know how many months ago, 5 months ago or so, we had the conversation kind of about the infrastructure and the advancement of the infrastructure. And in that meeting, it was discussed about a de-annexation. And that's kind of where the ball started rolling with the de-annexation. Where we're at with Impact is we don't care. Honestly, I'd love to be in part of stay inside city limits or go out. I just, at this point, and that's, we weighed both options and both financial obligations, and going with a well and septic would be quite a bit cheaper, and running off the RA that's already on property compared to upgrading the infrastructure for the town out to our property. So that's why we chose to move forward with the de-annexation. Is it, if you look at the map, if we de-annex, we would put a keyway out of the town. I totally understand. I totally agree with that. The fact that South Street down through that curve is not annexed into city would create kind of a dynamic with the property of the Mormon Church. But at the same point, this property has been part of the town of Wheatland since 1961 or 2 and has never received any infrastructure upgrades to make it part of the town in its structure. So that's kind of our reasoning and nature. A couple corrections. One, there is irrigation and there is ability to get irrigation on the property. And so that is something we have discussed with the irrigation district as far as just for using for the watering of landscaping, grass, that type of stuff. So that is, it stated that there was no access to of irrigation, but there is irrigation access.
No, irrigation rights.
There's irrigation rights.
Okay.
Yep. We have irrigation rights we pay for every year.
Oh, okay.
So that is, we have irrigation rights and we have irrigation access. So kind of different. As far as the concern of firearm discharge, we are looking at the final product of the large building having an indoor shooting range in the basement, but that'll be ATF monitored. And if we're still in city limits, we'll obviously require a special use permit to do that. But our goal is to be able to access or to be able to give access for YHEC, 4-H, as well as our law enforcement to be able to practice and shoot indoors year round in that facility. So it would be a pistol range, like a 4-lane pistol range and a 2-lane rifle range in the basement. And it would obviously be all up to ATF standards, vented and all of that. So anyways, but outside, as far as on property, I don't expect or believe that there would be any discharging of firearms because it is so close to the city and there's no reason to be doing that. So kind of where I'm at is, I'd love to just stay part of the town and be a part of what you guys have to offer as far as utilities and all of that, if that's an option that we could work through and work towards. If not, I'd ask and request that you guys move forward with the de-annexation so we can move forward with our project.
So just some quantified numbers from your report. Getting the electrical board under roughly 30 grand, right? Getting the electrical to a post or whatever to so that you can access it, 30 grand. Getting water up the road, and this is an estimate from Superior, 92. So 125,000.
That would
130 grand, right?
That would not be a redundancy loop. That would just be to edge of property.
Just to get it started, just to get minimum required to get you guys water and sewer, or water and electric. Sewer you can do. So here's my opinion. I will be a no vote for a de-annexation. I think this is a horrible, horrible thing to do to the town of Wheatland's economic health and its development. I think when property is annexed by town or whatever, it comes with an obligation to provide utilities to the owners and users of that property. That obligation apparently was never met by this town. And I think that we should find the money to do the infrastructure and get it to that location. I can tell you that talking to Candy, in our packet, this month's packet, we've got $300,000 for American Rescue Plan, and we had only budgeted $265 or so. So there's about $35,000 already unaccounted for in our cash flow. That's, I mean, according to what the money's supposed to be used for is water and sewer, I think, right? And broadband. So we've got the money, and I think that we should help this. We should provide the infrastructure to the users of this property. That's my input.
The property line, is that what you're saying?
mean, in the long term, in the long run, it gives you the opportunity. I mean, Mayor Fabian, when he was here, the intent of doing this electric up South Street was for the development of this land out there. That's why we did part of that. Or that was one of the rationales for that expansion or that upgrade to the electrical along South Street. And then the idea, I like the first page of this map showing easements through the property, which would allow the town in the long run to create a redundant loop in utilities, right, to West Walnut. So it would be a benefit in the long run to the health and safety of the public.
I also am not in favor of de-annexation. I think you've got a great thing going there, but I once the town would annex that property for a reason, you don't ever go back and get rid of it again once it's been annexed. You look down at northern Colorado, where the town of Meade has annexed an ungodly amount of acres that they brought in with a long-term thought of growth. I mean, it's quite a deal. Nowhere along the lines have they de-annexed something. No, they're keep what they can get.
And what did they? Do you know what they did for services? Are they providing services and utilities?
They're providing services to whatever's in the city limits. As it grows, they're providing services to that.
I don't want to put a damper on it. I don't think our code allows us to do that. I think to pay for the expansion of utilities to somebody's property.
We're not providing it, expanding it to, we're just doing normal development of our infrastructure. Has nothing to do with the fact that it's Impact Church or somebody.
No. I think our development code provides for the developer and the owner to pay for that stuff. I'm trying to find it now, but I think that, because we went to the Supreme Court on it and they said, you get to pay for that stuff. I just don't know the answer right now, Bill, but I just don't think you should vote on something when the code may say you can't do that.
So I don't know if they won't let you, but you can't afford it. I don't understand that.
So like on the water would be extending our water line, but possibly on the electric, it is already across the street, so that would be.
Yeah, we've already paid to have those moved semi-westerly right into here, and then is the water,
how far down the
where's the water coming?
Well,
from the new house or CNA's driveway? Right in there. So, yeah.
It's
we can ask them to talk
just
about
past our own driveway.
We didn't have engineering costs, things were gonna cost, but I don't think we should be de-annexed either, because you put this hole in. This is city.
this is city up here.
Well, I have been subject in my personal business to this idea that the private entities have had to pay for the development costs. And I'll tell you, my opinion is I think that's wrong. It's not consistent with what normal communities do. It's not good for the health and welfare, the economy of the town. And if it is in our code, I think we ought to change it. I felt like that. I mean, I'm sitting over here in a building over here. I had to pay $11,000 for a new transformer, 1,000 kVA transformer, when we moved our business over here on Oak Street. So when I leave, can I take a transformer with me? I doubt it. But maybe I'll just rip it out. I don't think it's right. I think that's the purpose of a town, is to provide utilities to properties that are inside the city.
I've talked to a couple different counties, and they, basically the way they run it is they run the utilities to the property line. It's up to the owner to run it from their property to the city utilities.
So like to be sure if your water is definitely as far as how it works for a resident. You're upside down.
Well, yeah, you're north.
I was orienting myself,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
The water definitely goes to here.
Am I live at this one?
It's not to there.
I've got a
First
question.
letter that Rick was talking about coming, that's
Right.
it'd be the loop. Mr. Idiot.
Merlin has an input.
Merlin, would you like to speak?
Well, not really, but I'm gonna anyway. From an economic development standpoint, and that's my job, if you put these kind of restrictions on businesses, you will never have any economic growth in this community. Almost every community that I've had visit with takes the infrastructure to the property line, and that's all we're asking to do for Impact Church. Take it to their property line. 700 feet of water line and bore underneath the highway. Keep them in the city limits, because when you start de-annexing portions of your city, you're telling the whole world, we don't want you here. Is that what we want for our community? That's not what I'm hired to do. I'm sorry.
No, thank you.
That's all I got to say.
No, I think when we were first talking about it, when Jeremy was giving us the all plan, we didn't have any real engineering numbers
No.
what to go on. And then, of course, one option was to de-annex, might have been the cheaper route. Of course, Jeremy did his due diligence and researched in that, but we had already paid for the power. And then, yeah, I'm in agreement, you know, bring the water to the property line. But, you know, at the time we didn't have any, well, we probably still don't have the exact hard numbers to it, but I know Jeremy did his due diligence and needed to check both avenues. And he said it perfect. It put a hole right there in the property, in the footprint of the town and everything, so.
And in the end, de-annexing wasn't it's not what we want. I mean, we're not trying to shirk building code. We're not trying, I mean, we will have a general contractor who will do everything up to the par of what the town has and beyond. And our goal is not to do anything shoddy. I mean, we want this to be a very solid establishment. So, and just another thing, the poles that you see, the tall poles, those are all getting cut down to 14 feet. So everyone can, I've had a lot of people like, you're building that big of a building. No, normally you don't put your poles at 30 feet apart. Normally you don't use telephone poles. Normally, anyway, so, but those will be cut down to 14 foot. It'll be, I mean, our goal is to just provide for this community options that they don't currently have. And make it where we're an asset to the community. And if we could stay in city limits, we'd be just fine with that. If that's something that is amendable to you guys.
And it's in the master plan that, my name's on there too, in 2008. You know, it talks about West Walnut, you know, about that whole area. And if, when it comes to that point, try to loop that from West Walnut. I think it's a 10-inch water line over there or something. But no, I'm against adjusting the footprint, the boundary line.
So another thing in our code, when they rezone to planned unit development, portion of planned unit development, 181020, is the permit procedure generally is to request a special permit and negotiate with the town council for extension of town infrastructure. So that I don't believe until this point, I don't think it was ever done. I don't think it was ever really brought up after the rezone was approved. So that might be a next step, is actually not just working with Impact, but possibly working with that whole area there to see what is needed.
So here's the change in the
Damn right.
So did they come out? Well, I was looking at this one.
Yes.
Power.
Exclusive power. It's a line extension of 63. Church would be.
But we just want to do it tomorrow.
He's in.
Oh, I just.
Said
This
it's in the county.
piece right here is what you're talking about.
Yeah, I thought you said it was in the county. Never mind. The church is. Oh, he's okay, because I was thinking. County office.
Either way. Septic. Unless you're looking at unless you're looking at could be yours. Oh no, Doug's brother. There's water.
South side of the gym. It's right under the road.
Irrigation water.
No, you'd have to go in and build that, but it's there.
So, we do it every spring.
Are you having a
It's been used every year.
I do.
Use it
Read them what the council's from.
So that's 16.
You want to proceed, I guess. I'm gonna vote no. Won't even second it. I won't even second it.
Call for a motion, you'll just let it roll.
Yeah, you could, then
I think we should.
Because I think the city,
I said, I'm fine voting no.
yellow line.
I'd rather have it a record, I'd rather have it be record, I'd no opinion before letting things die in that. That's what you're hearing. Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm
Okay, nice.
I was on part of it, but no, I mean, well,
You know, I got this stick.
I read it.
There's some Matthew. I told him the same thing.
Yeah. So, you know, this would be similar to what we just did with the other one. We have an ordinance. We really have to have an action on 4. So
Just go straight to item 5, which is ordinance 836.
So move to approve ordinance 836 on reading.
Second.
It's been moved and approved. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of ordinance 836 for the de-annexation of Lot B of the Willis Lot Split subdivision, on first reading signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Aye.
You still with us, Tony?
Tony's an aye on the nay.
Yeah, I said aye.
Aye on the
nay.
Okay. On,
Yeah.
on first reading,
Gotcha.
motion fails. That's it.
You won't have second reading because you
Right.
can't.
It's a 4-0 unanimous vote.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Hang out.
So, how do you want to figure it out? As far as what's my next step?
Well, didn't that one part say that the, recommendations, if denied,
Oh, yes, if denied.
as a part of the PUD special permit requirements in 181020, impact ministry should request a special permit and negotiate with town council for the extension of town construction.
Yeah, I think we just gotta figure out how to.
Okay.
Get it in.
Sounds perfect. I will make sure I'm here next month, and we'll do our footwork before then.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys.
I'd engage some in probably the first one, right?
Yeah.
This is.
Sorry to back you around.
I'm good. I just will keep showing up and filling out whatever I need to fill out, so.
Well, I apologize personally, 'cause when you were here and you were talking about it, I'm not sure where I was, but I know I was here, it just wasn't sinking in.
Yeah. No, and I'll be honest with you. I'm, like I said, I want to move forward with this project and get moving. I mean, we're at a point right now where, as a church, we're 95% full consistently with about 200 people watching us online because we can't fit them in the house. So it's a great problem, but it's something we need to start working towards alleviating. And honestly, I would have never even taken a step towards the annex. You guys were like, yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, that's an option you guys could have. And so honestly, I kind of had your go ahead for that option. And so I'm not mad. And honestly, in the broad scheme of things, we've done the annexation of peanuts, but we do want to be able to be breaking ground and moving forward come the February lull into spring and into summer. And if that's a possibility, that'd be awesome. So, but I'll work with Amy and Candy and you guys, and we'll figure out what we do. So, thank you guys very much.
No, I appreciate you doing your due diligence.
Yeah,
At least you
thank
answered
you.
your questions for your congregation.
Yeah,
You checked it out.
There you go. So, yeah, and if need be, I'll just mention it on Sunday. We can get a whole bunch of people there. If you want. Just a joke, guys. Well, thank you guys. And I'll let you guys discuss airports and everything else. I'm other than that.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Yeah, you're welcome.
How are you?
Thanks for staying awake, Ally.
Moving on to item number 6, the airport rescue grant agreement.
Mayor, this is additional funds from, let's see, what do I want to say? The American Rescue Plan funds for the airport. This is for $32,000. The agreement's the same as all the previous ones we've had. I kind of went through it, and it's the same. I'm assuming we'll probably just sit on this money by the time everything goes through and then budget for it in the next budget year, because I don't think the money will come in by that time. But I was going to look into, we've been having issues with our PAPI lights, and that it costs us a lot of money, and we'd like to do something there. That's an idea for the funds.
I guess I didn't read that as a allowable expense.
Pretty much what they're telling me is as long as it's for the airport.
For funding costs related to operation but it, okay.
And before, what we've done to Councilman Fritz is we've kind of just moved money from,
I've read it wrong. I was thinking this was something related to COVID, and it had to be COVID related, but now that I'm reading this paragraph, it's all comma separated. So it's related to operations, personnel, cleaning, sanitization. Combating the spread of pathogens at the airport is just one of those things. Got it, yeah. So, are you registered on SAM? Congratulations.
it is a miserable process to review each year. Yes, we are.
I have one question on item, let's see, page. These aren't numbered. Paragraph, well, it's paragraph 10. Minimum wage rates, Davis Bacon. Crap. It shall include in all contracts, it being the town, I guess, in all contracts in excess of 2,000 for work on the airport funded under this grant, which involve labor, blah, blah, blah. We have to follow the Davis-Bacon Act. And that's for all contracts in excess of 2,000 relative to this money or relative to any money spent at the airport.
It says on the airport funded under this grant agreement.
So that's what I'm saying. So
just this grant. This is a separate grant, is how I read it.
That's not how I read it. I read it, the airport that's being funded under this grant, which is Pfeiffer Airfield, cannot contract for more than $2,000 without following the Davis-Bacon Act.
All contracts for work on the airport funded under this grant. So it would just be under this grant agreement, which is the $30,000. That's how I read it.
Okay, I hope that's right.
She can call and find out.
I can call him, Mike.
But that's how I read it.
Okay, well.
Councilman Fritz, pretty much on any, like our seal coat markings, which is, you know, definitely over 2,000, the runway project, anything like that, we all follow Davis-Bacon on all of those. That's Josh's job.
When the government gets you, they get you.
I just didn't want you to have a $2,500 lawn mowing.
Yeah. Oh.
Do we need to do anything on this?
Yeah, you need to approve it. I need to approve it.
Move to approve, what was it? American Rescue Grant Agreement for the Pfeiffer Airfield.
Yeah.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. New business item number 7. Unfortunately for us, Judge Mickelson has submitted a letter of resignation. She's hoping to make it effective at the end of this year. Would be, after a good conversation with her, available to give guidance and help for a new appointed judge, i.e. training. And as long as the new person could pick it up relatively quickly at no cost. I mean, she just wants to make sure that there's a seamless transition for us and that we can maintain the municipal court funds that come to the town of Wheatland to keep coming to the town of Wheatland, so there's no gap in service for a judge. Kind of put some feelers out there. We have a gentleman here in the audience tonight, Mr. John Harris. Thank you for coming and enduring hours to get your time to answer any questions of you guys about his background and his qualifications. I think we got an email out with a resume of sorts to you guys to look. No, we didn't?
I just emailed it to you.
Okay. He has a impressive resume. And the other person that had expressed interest in that was Jerry Orr. Most people know Jerry. And I called and had a conversation with Mr. Harris, and I called Jerry Orr afterwards. and I told him there was one other candidate, and Jerry said, well, I retract my interest and I will submit a letter of support for Mr. Harris because he is way more qualified than I am.
Are you related to Harris?
Honorable Mayor, Council, yes, he's my brother.
That's all I need to know.
Don't hold that against me, please. Guys, answer any questions that any of you might have. I can give you a real brief background since you didn't get to see my resume.
No, we didn't.
I've been in law enforcement for 47 years. I've retired 3 times. I've been a police chief for 27 years in 5 different states. I grew up in Wheatland, Wyoming. I was actually born here on 9th Street when Dr. Ellison had his hospital there, and I was here until I went to the Army. I actually was in college, and then I voluntarily drafted into the United States Army, came back, and then went to Arizona and started a law enforcement career there. Retired from there in 1993 the first time, and then I've been a police chief in other places ever since. I've got a strong background. I've got a master's degree, Master of Arts in criminal justice. I have a bachelor's in public administration and law enforcement from the University of Arizona. And anything else you might want to know, I've attended the FBI National Academy in Quantico, Virginia. It was to develop law enforcement executives. I've been through a number of other training sessions to develop law enforcement training. And I was on the governor's of Arizona's appointment to do the commission to appoint appellate court judges, which included Supreme Court. So I've got a background on what judges are and what they require. I was also appointed to the Arizona Game and Fish Commission for 5 years. And I'm an outdoor person, and I volunteered also in Arizona as a volunteer game warden for 32 years. So just because I like the outdoors, I was giving back. And that's a real rough background.
I think to see it extensive. That was very good, John.
Pardon me, sir? Yeah, in fact, interesting story. I just recently retired in July from Yankton, South Dakota. The city manager over there was a very, very good friend. She asked me to come over for 3 months while they selected a new police chief. We were over there. The applications weren't that good, and she had some really good internal candidates that needed mentoring, and she talked me into staying for 3 years.
My wife's from McLaughlin.
Oh, okay.
There, yeah.
It's a neat, nice community, a nice area.
So what are you doing now? Are you retired?
I'm retired, kind of, but I'm working for food. My best friend is Richard Johnson at Johnson Ranches, and my brother also has a ranch, so I'm helping them with their cattle, and so they just feed me and house me until I get my place spot. So.
Were you? Did you have the pleasure of meeting Justice Scalia?
I absolutely did. In fact, we hunted with Justice Scalia on a couple of occasions, and interesting note, we also hunted with Justice Kagan.
Oh, no kidding.
Justice Scalia brought Justice Kagan out to hunt deer on Antelope.
Not to guess that, you know.
And it was very interesting. It was a very interesting time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my apologies for not getting the email forwarded to you guys. That's my bad, because Candy did her part. I failed. But just I know it's an expedited process, and it's a lot to process for you guys to think about or whatever, but to not have a gap in service, I guess I would like to make an appointment of John Harris if I can get council confirmation so he can get started with Judge Mickelson and transition as quickly as possible.
Well, just the fact that he bared it out for 2 hours here. Yeah.
He's either a glutton for punishment or really badly wants to stay involved. I'm not sure, but
for past history, I've attended a number of council meetings.
I'm sure you have.
I would move to accept that appointment as. There we go.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And opposed, same sign. So
we got you.
I guess you can probably start with Judge Mickelson as soon as you'd like, and then we'll do a official swear in our January meeting, I'm guessing, correct, Doug?
That'd be a good time to do it.
And so you can kind of learn the
And
ropes
if
and
he
then
needs
take.
to be, we can swear him in privately and then have a public ceremony if he needs to do something.
There's one caveat that I need to, I have a thing from July 10th through the 16th. I'm a volunteer. It's in Reno, Nevada. I've been doing it for almost 30 years. I'll be gone that week.
That's
We'll make
not
it
an
work.
issue.
Oh, you're working that out?
We'll forward communicate that with the chief, and he can just have officers write tickets for an advanced date, and, I mean, no worries that way.
We'll have Amy stand in for you.
Maybe no ticket week.
We already have that.
Touche.
Item number 8 was a last minute late coming thing, and I figured if we're springing stuff on you guys, we'll just throw this on the pile. You get the information in front of you the same as I did. Hopefully you kind of had a chance to peruse it a little bit, but we have an applicant, Mr. Clay Becker, for the Planning and Zoning Commission, at which time we have, 3 vacancies? So, I mean, a willing body is a good thing, and when you read his applicant questionnaire, I think there's some good qualities exhibited, and I guess as mayor, I would like to appoint Clay Becker to the Planning and Zoning Commission pending council approval.
Motion to accept the appointment of Clay Becker.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? I would also say that Mr. Becker would have liked to have been here, but because of the short notice, he's traveling for work and couldn't be here. Did say that if we needed something, he could be available by phone. So if we have questions or concerns, we certainly can connect with him. It's just a little convoluted where it was last minute and he couldn't be here in person like Mr. Harris was. So
I've worked with Clay out in the business sector, and he's very professional and does his due diligence. He'll be an asset, most definitely.
What is his current occupation?
I think he works for the REA.
I think his wife's the middle school principal.
He goes to church with us.
He knows the church bill.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know what we're talking about. Okay, good.
So it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on Mr. Becker joining the Planning and Zoning Commission? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And again, council, thank you for humoring my springing of those things on you without a lot of forewarning. Moving on to announcements, I think the only thing of note is the next regularly scheduled council meeting